Hey guys, my name is Donald Trump, Matt Cardona. Hi.
What up?
Why did you leave WWE? What's the reason?
There wasn't really a specific reason. Just at the point in my career where I was there for 7 years, it was just time for me to move on. I wanted to go out and do something different, try other things, and I felt creatively stale. I wanted to just do something new and different.
Do you have a favorite moment in WWE?
Well, definitely beating The Miz for the title at Mania. That's always going to be one of my favorite moments. Also, I think one of my most memorable is that night when I came back as Zack Ryder. And it was right after COVID when Roman and Jey Uso were in the ring and they were telling that really cool story. And all of a sudden my music hit. I came out the crowd and people lost their minds.
Why do you think Zack Ryder is dead?
A lot of the older fans love Zack Ryder, but the younger generation doesn't really have that connection with him. So it's hard for it to take off the way it did when I was doing it. The Zack Ryder character was at the right place in the right time, and that's why people liked it and people will always remember it. But I think if I tried to bring Zack back now, it wouldn't get nearly as much of a pop.
Since Vince McMahon, it's gone, as the opportunity will come to WWE.
Right now, I got no interest in going back to WWE, but I mean, never say never, but I'm having so much fun now. And WWE, for the most part, has all these young, really talented young guys, and that's great. That's the future of the company. But there's no room for kind of someone that was as pushed to the top and is kind of, my time is come and gone for the most part.
Did your wife, Chelsea, come? I dare you join the Indian shows.
No, she loves that I am working for all these different companies and going to all these different countries. I'm going to China in 2 weeks, and I'll be doing my first show out there. That is awesome for not only myself, but I know Chelsea's really excited that I can say I've been to all parts of the world and have worked at all of these different promotions and stuff.
What is your favorite company?
Man, there's so many awesome places to work. Personally, I like Japan a lot. I've always thought Japanese wrestling is the coolest. Those guys are so intense and so talented. I have so much respect for those guys.
How did it feel when Fight Old tag team partner Brian Myers?
It was cool because me and Brian were really close all those years in FCW. And then at one point, me and him formed a tag team called the Long Island Iced Z. And it was like, we basically were just trying to be the new version of the Jersey Shore. So it was like the Long Island Shore. And we're trying to wear those really tight shirts with the high hair. You know what I mean? So it was like a callback back to that tag team. And like we kind of had a new take on that, but it was fun.
What was your reaction? You come to AEW.
It was great. I've been friends with a lot of those guys, like the Young Bucks and the Elite. I know all those guys really well. And to be able to work a match against MJF in his hometown and in front of a rabid Long Island crowd was really exciting for me. And then having the chance to kind of get on the mic and kind of play up to the New York crowd and make people hate me was so much fun. I loved it. Really kan för förfrågan runt framtiden all for came cheer. I loved it. Then can't use it for racing brother and free.
Who come the idea, the Indie God and the Deathmatch King?
Well, in deathmatch wrestling, the deathmatch community, it's kind of its own little subset of pro wrestling, and they have their kings. Necro Butcher has the Deathmatch King, and Nick Gage was Deathmatch King, and it's really a top spot in that genre of pro wrestling. I did a couple death matches for Joey Janela, and he thought it would be fun to try to play up this whole thing and kind of be this Deathmatch King. So they kind of dubbed me the Deathmatch King. And then with the Indie God, it's actually something that Jim Cornette came up with.
Do you have favorite match in GCW?
Probably the last death match I did in the cage with AJ Gray and Eddie Kingston and Nick Wayne. That was one of the most brutal matches I've ever had. And I thought we all really put up a really awesome match that night.
What is your thoughts about NWA?
Man, I would have loved to be in the NWA back in the day. I think Billy Corgan and all those guys are doing a fantastic job trying to bring that company back to glory and really focusing on a true wrestling television show, the way wrestling should be produced and presented. I really respect what they're trying to do there.
Do you remember this challenges Grimm to a championship match? Grimm 2021 challenges Grimm for Grimmania 2022.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I love the Grimm character and the guys that portray him. And the Grim world in general. I always say, like, it's like the most fun you can have in professional wrestling, and everything is always crazy and fun. And for me to kind of be a part of that was just absolutely fantastic. And to get to hold the hardcore and world titles at the same time at Grimania last year, it was awesome.
What is your least favorite match in MLW?
The one that sticks out in my head was at the tapings at 2300 Arena against Alex Hammerstone and Lawler and Jacob Fatu. Those kind of multi-hardcore match in those tapings were really just like a cluster. I know they're trying to hit all the bullet points of kind of all the highlights as a production standpoint, but from a being in the match standpoint, it just was kind of tough to have that match in the situation.
How meet Chelsea Green?
So I met her actually at an NXT live event because she was working for Tough Enough at the time. She was one of the contestants. And I remember I was there sitting in the crowd with all my friends in the wrestling industry, and we were watching that show unfold. And when she auditioned, we thought she was fantastic. And so I ended up getting out of the crowd and I went behind the curtain and I was able to meet her. And then we became friends, and that led to us dating and stuff.
And Chelsea Green will have a kid anytime?
Yeah. Of course, I think about it all the time. Right now, our life is so busy with me being on the road and Chelsea being on the road and working TV, wrestling at the same time and all that stuff. It's just not the right time to sit down and really focus on having a kid, but absolutely that's in our plans. And that will happen for sure.
How did it feel? You his nickname it?
It was a lot of fun, you know, like the opportunity to work with Dolph again. We've been friends so long. I remember being like 16 years old, hanging out in his apartment for like a whole week when he first moved to Tampa, Florida, and we've been friends all these years. So I love getting to work with him, and I think he's fantastic pro wrestler. Not enough people give him credit for how great he is, but I absolutely love that match. We had so much fun together.
What match you hated in FCW?
Oh man, you're going way back. There were a few of them. There were guys at that time that I just didn't really have a good in-ring chemistry with, and so that made the matches frustrating. I think at that point in time, the biggest thing for me was trying to learn how to perform in front of those hard camera, as opposed to, you know, just learning the kind of technical aspect of wrestling. And that was a big thing for me, that, and also just learning psychology on how to make matches tell a story.
MP, it was Bill Gunn and Bishop Dyer. He has Tom Latimer. And you.
Yeah, I remember that, and I'm going to be honest, I don't remember that match being so great. You know, it's just a very basic tag team match. It was very short. It didn't have a lot of time to get any kind of story told or anything like that. And again, in the situation working with Tom, I just didn't have a lot of chemistry in the ring with him. So it wasn't my favorite match in the slightest. Like,
what do you think of John Cena turning heel on Netflix on Raw?
I remember that night like it was yesterday, and I've always thought over the years that John should have played a heel because his character is just so polarizing. There was a lot of people that hated him, and I think in general, John is someone who always did his best work when he was kind of the heel with an edge and the underdog who was kind of this anti-hero. I mean, think back to how he kind of started. He was in the Doctor of Thugonomics, which was this kind of character that a lot of people hated. But at the same time, a lot of people loved.
Do you have any plans?
Not really. I'm just taking life week by week at this point. I'm kind of doing a lot of random spots for different shows and just kind of riding this wave and seeing where it takes me. I'd like to have some kind of regular work. It's cool to have the ability to work all these random places. I'm wrestling in Germany in a few weeks, but at the same time, having consistent work is something that is on my radar. But it's a difficult thing to find in independent wrestling.
What do you think of Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson match on Netflix?
I mean, I just kind of look at that as like celebrity boxing. I try not to take it too seriously. I just look at it as entertainment. I know that these boxing matches that are happening nowadays, and this has been happening for many years, they are always kind of made to benefit, I guess you could say, the star of the show. In this instance, it's Jake Paul who is going to have the advantage. And if you look at Tyson, he hasn't competed like a boxer in nearly 20 years. It's almost like an exhibition match.
Who made your gear?
So for the majority of my career, I've had gear made by one of my good friends, Chris. He goes by Chris the Tailor. He's been making pro wrestling gear his whole life. Basically for all my friends, almost all the New York guys that are in and out of WWE and AEW and everywhere, he's made their gear. Now, lately, I've actually been working with the guys at New Japan with their production company, and they actually made my gear for the match in the NWA and the death match in GCW.
Do you have a favorite match, New Japan?
I'd say my match with Kota Ibushi was my favorite. That was kind of just one of those things where you could feel the electricity in the arena. Everything about that night, from my perspective, was just kind of magical. The crowd was so hot. Me and Kota went out and had this awesome no-holds-barred match, and I got absolutely destroyed in that match to the point where I was just beaten and bloody, and I just loved it. It was just so much fun.
Do you have a favorite moment with Chelsea Green?
We actually went and traveled around Italy because Chelsea had gotten a role on Bold and the Beautiful. So when she got it, she went out to LA, and we did this whirlwind trip where we went to Rome, and we went all around the place. And one of the coolest stops was we were able to hike to the top of the mountain that you can see when you look at the statue of David on Mount David. It was an amazing experience.
What you can chance if stay work with WWE?
I love the WWE. I absolutely love the company and everybody that works for that company that works so hard. And obviously, you know, it was a dream of mine to end up there and to work there. So, of course, it would be cool to see where I could take that, especially now that I'm so much older and have so much more experience. But I also am kind of just happy doing the independent stuff, doing all these other different promotions. It's kind of like going through a bucket list of kind of things I wanted to accomplish in pro wrestling.
What you wish you can chance if stay with WWE?
I think a big thing would definitely be my character. Just kind of let me be me. And so being in the indies, I get to do that. I can just be myself 100%. And I think the Zack Ryder character, which is something I was kind of pushed into at a certain point during my time there, ended up being kind of restrictive. So I think having a little bit more freedom just to be myself would definitely be a big thing.
If you show Raw on Netflix as Matt Cardona.
Man, they got all kinds of new stuff going on Raw every week. We got Sami Zayn doing awesome as usual. We got Kevin Owens, who is kind of getting a little bit of an edge back and trying to do his best. He's always awesome every time he's on television. And we got Austin Theory now that he's actually getting a real character. All this stuff is really cool. I think right now the WWE has some of the best characters and storylines that they've had in years.
If you did return on Raw on Netflix, who's the first person who's going to call out?
If I could go back to the WWE right now and be able to call out anybody I wanted, I would have to say Seth Rollins. Just because I feel like Seth and Zack Ryder never really got much of a chance to interact, but now that I'm in this sort of new evolved version of the character, having a chance to kind of go back to that old territory and get a chance to work with Seth Rollins would be awesome.
In what type of match? For your dream match?
Man, I'd like to try a gimmick match. Obviously, as someone who makes their living doing death matches these days, I think it could be cool to try like a street fight in the WWE. But I also kind of just like a good old-fashioned wrestling match. Sometimes I think people kind of forget that I did once hold like the world title in the WWE, even though it was for like a second. But I can definitely go in the ring. So maybe a true wrestling match between me and Seth Rollins.
What is your thoughts about Vince McMahon?
I have major respect for Vince McMahon. I think he's an absolute genius. I mean, the WWE wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for him. Obviously, he's made some mistakes in the past, and he's made a lot of bad decisions. But at the same time, you can't deny that he's the reason the WWE has become the success that it is, and he's a brilliant man.
How did you meet Brian Myers?
Brian Myers and I have known each other for probably close to 20 years at this point. We were both training together at the New York Wrestling Connection. We used to ride to the dojo together. We used to travel places together. We trained together. We did shows together on the New York circuit. We were a team for a while. We called ourselves the Rough House Express. And then we went on to kind of do our own thing. But Brian and I have been friends for so long at this point.
What is your favorite meal?
Oh, that's easy. It's pizza. I'm a guy from Long Island. It's got to be pizza, always pizza, especially New York pizza. Man, I could really go for a slice right now.
Do you always want to play as heel?
I have always enjoyed playing a heel more. I never really liked being a baby face because as a baby face, you always you can't get, too far and you can't really show a huge range of emotion because you're expected to be a good guy. Whereas when you're a heel, you can just kind of tap into so much and do so much with that role. I also just think, me personally, I am better at being a heel.
If you own Disneyland, what you do to the place?
So I love Disneyland. I think that place is phenomenal. It's absolutely fantastic. But here's the thing. They need to bring the cost down because it is expensive. And in order to do that, even though people might hate this idea, and I understand why they would, they have to limit the number of people that can go to Disneyland in a day. It can't be such a crowded situation all the time. So if I owned the place, I would, definitely be limiting people in every single day.
Will at any rides?
It's funny you say this because there is a ride that used to be there that was one of my all-time favorites, and I wish it was back. And I don't understand why they took it out. It was called Body Wars, and it was like kind of a simulation ride where you were in this spaceship and you were shrunken down and you were looking at like people's organs and stuff, like from the inside out. It was so cool. I wish they would bring that back.
Do you favorite moment with Chelsea Green in Disneyland?
So we went to Disneyland and we were on Splash Mountain, and you're not supposed to be talking while you're in this ride, but they were playing a remix of her old WWE theme song. And so we kept going. That's her song. We were the only two people on the ride that time around. So we actually sang along. We're going, and we're on Splash Mountain singing her old song. And no one else could tell us to shut up because we were the only people in there at the time.
What was your childhood?
So as a kid, I've never been athletically inclined. Of course, like every other young boy, I always wanted to be like a baseball player or play football. But I was very small for my age, and I was always kind of more of a nerd kid. I was really into video games. I was really into comic books. And then I found pro wrestling, and that just completely changed my life.
When you was a kid, what is your favorite game to play?
My favorite game to play by far was like the old wrestling games on the N64 and on the PlayStation. I would just sit there and play those games for hours. I even used to make up like my own story mode and play out like the matches and all the cutscenes. I'd let the computer win sometimes to make the story work and stuff. So those were definitely my favorite games.
Have you been injured before?
Of course, wrestling is a brutal sport. So I've had my share of injuries, not only my share of bumps and bruises, but I've broken bones many, many times. I actually tore a pec out of my body. That was a brutal injury for me. That was definitely the most life-altering and the one that took the most time to heal.
How long it heal, pick out?
I ended up being out for about 8 months. It took a really long time. It was like one of those injuries where it was a combination of not only being physically painful, but mentally knowing that it's going to take so long to heal. So I found myself dealing with the mental part of that injury as much as the physical issues.
Do you have any social media?
So I use all the typical social media. I am on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and I also have a TikTok. And what's really cool about TikTok is the algorithm seems to work in a way where if people like one of your videos, the algorithm spreads, and then all of a sudden your video is getting like hundreds of thousands of views. I have a few videos on TikTok of some of my matches from GCW and PWG, and that one clip of me in Japan just recently has got almost 1 million views on TikTok.
On PWG, what is your favorite match to do?
So my favorite match to do in PWG was the match where me and Brody King were fighting for the PWG World title. That was a super fun match in 2019. And I think me and Brody just have really good chemistry together. And it was one of those situations where not only was it a great match by my standards, but that PWG crowd was really into it too. And it was just so much fun.
What social media name?
So on Instagram, I'm the real Matt Cardona. On Twitter, I'm the Matt Cardona. And on Facebook, I'm Matt Cardona. And on TikTok, I go by Matt Cardona 1.
Do you have a YouTube channel?
I have a YouTube channel. It's not as active as I'd like it to be, and I plan on changing that very soon. It's mostly just like my vlogs from my time on the road and some old wrestling matches and stuff. The channel is just The Matt Cardona on YouTube.
Do you want anything to your fans that supported you?
For sure. I mean, wrestling fans are the best part of the whole business because that's what makes the money. That's what makes this business go. So whether you're a fan of my Zack Ryder days, or you're a fan of me now, or you're a fan of both, I really appreciate it. And I love seeing all their reactions, and them getting to interact with them is always awesome. So thank you.
If you quit wrestling today, what is your big plans?
If I stopped wrestling, my big plan is hopefully not to get a real job. I'd like to maybe focus on my production company that I have with my good friend DJ Matt, and just kind of enjoy life, spend more time with Chelsea, go on more vacations and stuff like that. But I don't ever want to stop wrestling. as long as my body holds up, I plan on doing this for years and years and years.
What format you hated as Zack Ryder?
So I had to dig deep into my brain for this one, but I remember there was a match they wanted me to have, kind of a handicap match against Fandango and Bo Dallas and I think maybe Adam Rose or something. And this match just didn't make any sense. Like, why was this a handicap match? And I was getting kind of beat up really badly that the fans started to feel bad for me. And at that point, I thought that my character was supposed to be a badass underdog, kind of a little David in this sort of big Goliath situation. But when that match happened, it felt like the fans were booing my ass.
Do you want to say anything to friends and family and fans?
I just want to say thanks so much for all the support. And the fans who have stuck with me and followed me no matter where I go and no matter what I do, I'm grateful for you guys. I feel extremely lucky to be able to do what I do, and it wouldn't be possible without you guys being so supportive. And then my family, I don't want to single anyone out, but I have great parents who got me into wrestling and who have been so supportive of me and my career since day one.
Do you want to say anything to your haters?
My haters, it's kind of funny, but I know exactly what type of fan usually ends up just not liking me. And I get it because I realize I'm not what you typically expect when you think of a professional wrestler. I am kind of skinny. I'm not some big jacked muscular guy. You know, that's not me. I don't look like a traditional wrestler, and I get that. But the cool thing is that I make the haters care, because if you hate me, you're still a fan and you still care.
Do you want anything before in the I end of Vido?
I'd just like to say thanks for a good interview. I really appreciate it. These are fun questions, and some of them I've never been asked before. So I really appreciate that.
Well, take care and have a nice day, bye.
Thanks, man. Take it easy. Have a good one. It's me, Matt Cardona. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe button, turn on the notifications bells, and give me a follow on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere you can find me. And if you sign up for my YouTube channel, you'll be able to get a lot of cool exclusive content and all the new videos the second they come out. Make sure to go to my website, mattcardonashop.com, and check out all my new merchandise. And I'll catch you guys next time. I'm out.